Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Live from America podcast. As always, I'm here with Hatem. He usually does the introduction, but I'm going to do it today. On my left, one of our favorite guests from We the Internet TV, Lou Perez.
Hey, thank you.
If you like what he says, you can follow him. What's your Twitter thing now?
Lou on the subway.
It's better announce it at the beginning because I don't, you never know how people are listening at the very end. Lou on the subway. One of the greatest comedians working anywhere in the United States of America. And notable for being fired for some anti-Trump comments in Atlantic City, Mr. John Laster.
It happens.
Yeah, he won't back down. Fight the power. And Rick Wilson is is guest of honor. Rick Wilson is a longtime Republican political strategist. Wait, let me finish, John. He's a good guy. Infamous. Longtime Republican strategist, infamous negative ad maker, commentator, and author. Infamous. Following his #1 New York Times bestseller, Everything Trump Touches Dies. His new book, Running Against the Devil, which is a guidebook for beating Trump, tricks, traps, and Twitter feed in 2020.
Here we go.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So you're gonna tell us, from the Republican point of view, why, or from the conservatives' point of view, why they should still vote for whoever the Democratic candidate is.
Oh, it's not just a conservative's point of view. It's that I'm a guy who helped build this whole electoral system we run now.
Good going.
And yeah, it worked out pretty well. Right up until the part, it was a total disaster. But the book is really about how to beat Trump at the game that his people are going to play. I know this because I helped write the rule book for it. And I'm one of the few Republicans out there who thinks Trump is a gigantic, evil piece of shit. And I'm willing to say it, and I'm willing to go out and stand by my principles on it. And this book is the product of 30 years of beating the hell out of Democrats all over the country. And when you noted an infamous negative ad maker, I was the guy that Democrats would tell their children scary stories about at night. Rick Wilson will come and make ads about you if you don't behave, because I was that bad. I was the guy you brought in for the really nasty last-minute negative stuff, and I was really good at it.
So that is really interesting. I want to get into that too. I just want to say, maybe for the sake of argument, I should just 100% of the time now take the position of a pro-Trumper to make it interesting. So just in case.
Well, you do anyway.
No. I mean, so just from here on in, I might believe it, I might not believe it, but I don't want to have to go through all these disclaimers and stuff. So I'm going to try to play the devil's advocate. But before we get to that, just because of this ad maker, were you involved in a Willie Horton ad?
No, I was too young for that.
What is your feeling of? Do you know the Willie Horton ad was this ad against Michael Dukakis by the Bush campaign?
It was not the Bush campaign. It was a separate independent expenditure group not connected to them. In fact, the Bush campaign tried to pull the ad off the air.
I stand corrected. By a Bush, kind of like it was a
basically
a type thing.
Basically, it was a proto super PAC. There weren't super PACs then, but it was something like that.
And it brought out the fact, during a very crime-ridden time, that Dukakis had these weekend furloughs for a rapist or whatever it is, and this guy Willie Horton got out and he committed a crime again,
right?
And he was a black image, and that was called a racist ad, and it's kind of a pivotal moment in infamous ad history. So I wonder what you think going back in time now. You regret that ad, even though you didn't do it.
Well, look, Al Gore originated the Willie Horton attack on Mike Dukakis in the primary, and pounded the hell out of it for months on end. And there wasn't a peep about it from people. They're like, oh, Al Gore's running a very aggressive campaign. And then when the guys that generated that ad, Larry Weitzner and another guy whose name escapes me now because he's dead. Was
it Lee Atwater?
No, it wasn't Lee. Lee ran the Bush campaign itself. It was, anyway, I'll come to me in a second. But those guys built an ad that was basically inflammatory in image, but correct in statement. And that happens a lot in advertising, where the things that you remember about the ad are the images and not the words. I mean, I made an infamous ad about Max Cleland in Georgia in 2002. And
his guy lost limbs or something?
Yeah, he lost 3 limbs in Vietnam. And he voted against, and remember, it's 2002. Homeland Security is like a big deal. Everybody thinks, wow, Department of Homeland Security is a great idea. And that was our guy was behind. We went and made an ad. All people remember is in the beginning of the ad, it says, in a time when we faced terrorists and foreign dictators, and had a picture of bin Laden and pictures of Saddam Hussein. Every Democrat remembers that ad as, oh my God, you morphed Max Cleland's head into bin Laden. It didn't happen. The facts of the ad, most of the ads talking about his votes, but people remember the visual images in ads. In the 60s, before all of us were really kicking around very much, in 64, the Daisy ad in the campaign
with Lyndon Johnson
against Goldwater, the Daisy ad was very simple. And all people remember was a little girl burning to death in a nuclear holocaust. And all these things with television ads, you remember the image. One or two images from an ad burn into your head. The rest is static.
But the accusation against the Willie Horton ad, and then we'll get away from it, was that it was racist. I actually don't think it was. I thought that it was totally, as a voter, it's a totally legitimate issue. And if the guy happens to be black, well, I mean, not bring up the issue because of that.
I wonder.
But I'm in a very minority position there. Even all my friends always said it was racist.
Like at the time when you're putting together that ad, I mean, were there choices between, okay, we got the black guy who was let out and then did this, and we got the white guy who did the same thing, but we're going to choose the black guy.
Yeah, again, I can't speak to their creative process because I wasn't. I was a field guy for Bush in '88. I was young. I was fresh out of school. I was running Florida operations for that guy. Not, I wasn't at that level of ad making. But
okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just because this, I think that I'm asking you about something which you probably must have an opinion on, and it should be able to tell me. I think that ad was perfectly okay, or I'm not comfortable with that ad. I wouldn't run that ad today.
I wouldn't run that ad today, but I will say this: when you're in a gunfight, all that other shit falls away and you're going to do what you got to do. And campaigns are a zero-sum game. There is a winner and there is a loser. And over again in campaigns, people will go ahead, on both sides of the equation, by the way, they will go ahead and when they're desperate, they'll use things that push right up to the line. I think that ad was pretty close to the damn line.
And as a black guy, I think that I feel like what's always used is the black guy. Just like the midterms. You know what I mean? These Mexicans are going to come rape your white women.
Mexicans are not black.
Same thing.
Oh, okay.
People of color.
Yeah.
It's the same. I think Mexicans weren't on the hot seat back then. Back then, there was the black guys coming to.
Oh, okay. So we definitely don't want to spend the whole show about Willie Horton. I would just say that
I'm just saying it's a black guy.
Yeah, it is a black guy. And
if he wants to defend him, he change the subject.
There's an unfortunate reality. We've spoken about this, and I don't know how you handle it in the real world with the full sensitivity, but with also not pretending that the sky is blue when it's not. Which is that, especially then, we were riddled with violent crime. And it's something like in New York, where we look at it like 97 or 98% people of color, not in all crime, but in violent crime. And it's very difficult to talk about that subject without sound like you're attacking people based on race. And the irony of that is, in a lot of these situations, to me, is that we spend so much time talking properly and righteously that we need to help the poor communities in this country, especially the black community, because we have a special obligation to them because of our history with slavery, as if we've created this problem, so we have a special moral obligation to it. But yet, when you want to talk specifically about the manifestations of that problem, very high crime, whatever it is, then people say, why are you saying that? There's no high crime. That's racist. We'll say, well, okay, if everything's hunky dory, then what is the reason that we need to pay this special attention? So you don't need to answer me, John, because I'm only saying that I don't disagree with you. I'm saying, just like from my point of view, I find that difficulty growing up in New York in the 90s, knowing so many people who were mugged, including people in my family. Ava went to the hospital. I mean, and remarkably consistently by non-white people. Then you see an ad of somebody who looks just like the people who mugged everybody I know. And yes, it reverberates with you. And it's easy to think that the person it's reverberating with is reverberating because he's racist or something. And he has to say, no, honestly, I'm not racist. This is the way I see the real world. And that's not a satisfactory. I know when it comes out of somebody's mouth, it's not a satisfactory answer because this is too visceral.
I also think you're talking about two different things. One thing that you're talking about is crime or whatever in certain areas, and where there's black people. Another thing that you're talking about is the imagery that is used when you say the boogeyman's coming.
Yeah,
the boogeyman just happens to always be black. Some big black guy is coming to rape your white women. Now it's Mexicans. They're coming over the border.
The caravan.
Remember, that was his midterm. That was his midterm final push. These Mexicans, and he actually said it on the stump. Yeah. He said, "We need to protect our women." He said, the president of the United States said that.
But my favorite crime-related ad I ever made, we're filming these ads in this county jail down in Florida. And by law in Florida, you can't show inmates, but we're allowed to use the facility. And so we're sitting there. We didn't know that going in. I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do? So I shaved my head. I had hair then. So I shaved my head, put on an orange jumpsuit.
And blackface.
Took my, no. Put on an orange jumpsuit. And I shaved my head down. I looked like Malkovich. I was skinnier at the time. And I just, I put my arms to the bars. And it was, they like grained up the film. And people were like, who is that scary guy in that ad? Oh my God, he's a fucking monster. Where'd you get him? I'm like, yeah, that's me.
I remember like even the times in the OJ trial thing, they made him blacker. Do you remember that?
Time Magazine.
Yeah.
Time Magazine.
Time Magazine.
Absolutely.
I have a question for Rick. Do you think the negative ad is the news now?
Oh, well, God. Yeah. You know, look, we don't live in, we used to call it the news cycle. It's not a news cycle anymore. Because ads used to be part of the news cycle. You put an ad up, people would talk about it for a day or two, and it'd go on TV for a week, and then you'd do another one.
Yeah.
Well, now we have this news ecosystem, and it's always on, and everybody's always talking. The conversation on Twitter and Facebook, you know, those fucking hellscapes never ends. And so often you're engaging in the same political attack you would have delivered with an ad 5-10 years ago. With a tweet, with a Facebook meme, with all the things that we do now, you've got to be agnostic about the platform your message is going on because everything is everywhere.
With Nancy and Schumer in front of an Iranian flag.
Okay. I know.
So as playing the part of the Trump supporter, let me let me get the ball rolling. I would say this: for 4 years, I've been hearing that literally, I think it's. Every single thing this man has done has been wrong and dangerous to the nation. And that's not even counting the amount of years we spent hearing that he was actually a Russian asset. Every single thing he's done has been wrong. And yet 4 years later, the country is doing really, really well. And I would say, well, if this is what comes to a nation when the president does every single thing wrong, how awesome would our situation be now if he had done some things right? What would we see differently if Trump had only done the opposite of everything that he's done? Because every single thing he's done is wrong, right?
Well, look, the economy's top line numbers are the equivalent of a Coke binge. We did a $2 trillion tax bill that served as a massive stimulus. Trillion with a T. We will not be able to pay for that, and it comes due in 2 years. We have no way of doing that. Our deficits right now are running $1.9 to $2.1 trillion a year. We cannot cover the debt service on our national debt at all, and still do Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
Paul Krugman doesn't agree with you. Left-wing economists don't agree with you.
Well, left-wing economists believe in modern monetary theory, which is also like the economic theory that rainbows shoot from unicorns' asses and we can surf on them.
No, but I'm saying you're using a right-wing argument to make an argument against the Republican president to clear the way for a Democratic candidate who's going to be at least as bad, at least as irresponsible fiscally as Trump ever was.
Well, you know,
Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders are not looking to cut spending.
As a Republican, I have to make the painful admission that during Obama, the deficit went down for 7 out of 8 years, and the national debt went down for 4 of the 8 years.
Well, I mean, I don't get into Obama, but Obama had actually an enviable position, and it was. I may be one of the only people who see it this way. I think that to come in at the very bottom of a cycle, right after an economic panic, is a pretty good time to come in as president because it's really only going to go up. and you come in at the maximum deficit spending because you've seen the biggest crash since 1929. Well, what do you expect when the economy turns around a little bit? Yeah, it's true it could go the other way, in which case basically the United States is over. But overwhelmingly, as McCain said and got in trouble, the fundamentals of the country were good. This was very much a panic. So Obama, of course, was going to,
and also, the balance of power too needs to be, you have three branches. So, who was president, what party were they in, and then who was in control of Congress. I think that definitely plays a role in what's able to, to pass and what.
I'm skeptical the president has much to do with any of this, to tell you the truth. But I don't want to step outside my Trump supporter role. Go ahead. But I am making the point that so basically everything he's done is wrong, and it's all worked out pretty much okay. And it is a very fair question to say, well, okay, this is the status quo. What would be way better now if he had done things differently? Would the economy be better? Would we have a proper procedure at the border? What exactly is it that we are looking at when we survey the landscape now and say, boy, if only he weren't president, this would be different?
Values?
We're looking at some corrosions in our system and the norms in our system and the balance of powers in our government that we've never seen, including since Nixon. And the degree to which this White House is engaged basically as a corrupt business enterprise adjunct of the Trump organization is a existential threat to this country. What do
you mean by existential?
I mean the fact that this government is clearly for sale.
Yeah, but existential meaning it'll cease to be?
Yes, existential threats to the government. We're going to end up being an authoritarian kleptocracy. We're going to end up looking a lot like Russia in the post-Cold War era.
Wait. I don't mean, but I'm trying to really understand what you mean. Authoritarian in the sense that to suspend elections?
We may reach a point in this country where, the Republican Party no longer functions as an electoral party at all.
Authoritarian for 4 years until the people vote again, or authoritarian in the sense of what that usually means, which is
I believe
like the Palestinians.
I believe we are a fairly resilient country, but that we are at an inflection point right now where Donald Trump presents risks to the way we govern ourselves.
So you think it's possible this could be the last election?
I think it's possible that if Donald Trump wins this, we will see a very profound change in the way this country operates.
But it's possible to be the last election. I mean, this is part of my Trump supporter self. It's like the words are so
apocalyptic
and catastrophizing. Like, as somebody told me that word recently. It's like existential threat. Okay, well, Nazi Germany was an existential threat. Now Trump is an existential threat, and at some point it becomes so imprecise. I don't actually, and I don't mean to be difficult, I don't actually know what we mean by saying Trump is an existential threat.
Let me boil down. You started off your question with everything that he does is wrong, right? So you started there. I don't think that the problem is that everything he does is wrong. I think the intention of which every move he makes is wrong. The intention is, how does this benefit me personally? What is this going to do for me personally? Because I don't even think that you need a $2 trillion tax cut in an economy that's sailing along, other than to go out and say, hey, I cut you people's taxes.
Look, I know the guys that wrote the tax bill. I know the guys who sat in Mitch McConnell's office and wrote the tax bill.
Yeah.
I asked them directly. I'm like, why? What's the run out? What's the numbers? How does it play out? What's the middle class slice out of this pie? And my friend laughed and he goes, fuck if I care. I work for the goddamn hedge fund industry.
Well, okay.
I'm not doing, and they literally designed this thing to sell as a middle class tax cut, but functionally it's helping people a few blocks from here. 89% of the benefit is going to them. And
no, it didn't help me in New York. I'll tell you that.
No, certainly not. But
again, you're not his voter.
No,
that's my point.
Okay, but here's listen, as my Trump supporter, first of all, Woodward in his book actually recounted that Trump actually wanted to raise taxes higher on the wealthy, and as he was saying that they can afford it, and which is he's always said, and that's not realistic in Republican. Unfortunately, that's not realistic in Republican politics, which means that it's not a Trump thing. Trump is probably the most sympathetic to that of any Republican president we've had in terms of raising taxes on the wealthy.
He didn't.
It wasn't in the cards.
It wasn't in the cards
people
for him.
because people like his friend, it's a non-starter. Mitch McConnell is not going to shepherd through a bill so that's not a Trump thing.
Right, but what I'm
That's not something that's going to change when Trump is
going back to
dead
my
and
point,
gone.
I think that he does stuff that is good for him. I don't think that
What has he done that's good for him?
I think that him being able to say, "Hey, I cut taxes. Hey, I ripped up that thing that Obama did." It's all about.
So interesting. Tyler Cowen, the economist.
Sure.
He's a pretty straight shooter. He's not a partisan Republican, that's for sure.
No.
He's a small L libertarian.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Libertarian. He's not a
Right.
no. He's not a partisan.
No.
And he's no Trump supporter by any means. He told us on the podcast that he said all things being equal, he would have voted for the tax bill, which says to me that he didn't say it was the tax bill he would have written. Just that in comparison with the status quo, it was better. And I made the argument to him, and he said this was a correct argument. I said if the new tax bill, the one that was passed, were the status quo, and then a politician were introducing the previous tax bill, wouldn't there be we'd actually be raising taxes on the middle class, even just a little bit. Could we lower them just a little bit? But you would have all the same arguments would kick in, even if you just wanted to repeal this tax bill and go back to the old tax bill, you can make every argument to complain about going backwards that were made to complain about going forward. No?
Look, I think that
You follow my point.
I follow your point, as convoluted as it is, because the time machine.
Good day, sir.
Good day, sir. The time machine question, the 2020 question, is always, is there an actual measurable macroeconomic impact? And a lot of the economist friends that I have, they still ascribe the majority of our growth we're experiencing right now to the fact that the Fed is dumping money into the system at a record
But
rate.
they don't know. I think they don't know. They've never known. What is their batting average for any of these economists in terms of telling us anything? Anything.
The dismal science has its merits, okay? But the question about a lot of what Trump does is it is driven by, as John said, self-interest. It is driven by...
Give me an example.
I'll give you an example. The industry rules for the coal industry that have been completely rewritten, a day after a $1 million donation was made to the Trump inaugural committee, the list of 27 items that the coal regulatory repeal was going to happen was given to the guy who's running that division of the EPA, who's a former coal lobbyist, by his former boss who gave money to Trump. Then they wrote into the official language of government the executive order that repealed all those environmental protections.
How is that to his benefit?
That $1 million in the inaugural committee?
Well, are you saying that a politician who responds to donations?
Do you not know politicians?
Well, that's my point. What I thought you meant by his benefit meant in his pocket. Like it helped his hotels or something like that.
Ego,
well,
maybe.
If what you're saying is that he did the bidding of his donors.
If you want to do the hotel thing, the presence of lobbyists, of foreign interest groups using Trump hotels,
of the stops over there by Turnberry,
it is insanity
for the military stop
right
over there.
The guys who buy Mar-a-Lago memberships, they're not doing this because they love the classic Post mansion. They're doing it because they are directly subsidizing Trump. They're paying things into his businesses that benefit him directly, which he never gave up control of his businesses.
I don't blame him. And they don't benefit him in any meaningful way, I don't think.
So the question, the stuff that you're listing, would that come under like the emoluments?
A lot of it would, yeah.
So sort of as an outsider who, I sometimes dip my toe.
Emoluments is dealing with foreign.
Is it just?
It is
only foreign.
It is foreign, but there are many people, many foreign nationals, miraculously, are buying up golf memberships and Trump condos and Trump club memberships.
I'm sure he's making a deal with Saudi Arabia.
Let Lou make his point, then I want to zoom out for a second because I have an idea.
Because when it comes to the impeachment, the impending impeachment, as an outsider looking in, I'm like, are they going to get him on stuff like that? Or are we skirting? Or are we doing this balancing act between what is legal and what is not?
Those are not in the articles that are discussed right now. The emolument stuff is not in the articles right now. There may be a second bite of that apple at some point, but it's not in the current set of articles.
These articles of impeachment are a disgrace to the.
What's it going Wednesday?
To the Democrats. They spoke. This is an aside. They spoke for 2 or 3 months about bribery, after spending about a year telling us that the Mueller report showed 10 or 11 examples of obstruction of justice, which were a roadmap for impeachment. He's giving us a roadmap for impeachment. And then what do? They charge him with none of it. And they say, abuse of power, which is a meaningless, undefinable phrase.
It got Nixon.
It didn't get Nixon. Nixon was abusive. First of all, he was not impeached, but there were like 4 or 5 other articles of impeachment against Nixon listing crime, this crime, that crime, using the FBI. I mean, like crime, and then the icing on the cake was this kind of all-purpose abuse of power. But people were saying he abused power and should be impeached when he had kids in cages. People were saying he abused power when he did the hotels. They use this for anything. I suppose you can abuse power, but it really feels like they were saying all this stuff all along, but when it came time to putting ink to paper, they're like, I don't think we really have him on this stuff. Because why would you go with abuse of power if you had him on bribery? Why would you go with abuse of power if you had him on obstruction of justice?
Let me just ask this quick question before you go, Rick. You're talking about kids in cages. You're talking about him asking.
None of these things are good things.
No.
Yeah.
Stay with me.
Good reason, all reasons to vote him out.
Stay with me. You're talking about him asking Mueller to be fired. You're talking about him withholding money, which clearly he does in the Ukraine thing, and then all the other things that we don't even know about. And
let's get him for the things we don't know about.
But I'm saying each time, we have to argue these things individually. But I'm just saying, when you look at the whole, it doesn't trouble you that there's this many things that a guy has been sitting there doing in this White House that we know of.
Yes, it troubles.
That doesn't scare the shit out of you.
It does trouble me. Now you're making me break character. It does trouble me. However, he's not the first president to trouble me. And usually, when president troubles you, you vote him out of office. It is hard to swallow that of what number president is Trump? 41. Out of the 45 presidents, hold on, I'll answer you. Out of the 45 presidents, that this dumb thing in Ukraine, this phone call, was the single thing that a president has done that warrants removal from office after 45 presidents.
It's not the phone call. It is the pattern.
Whatever it is, whatever you can give the best version of it. It's just hard to believe this is worse than the stuff Johnson was doing, stuff Kennedy was doing, stuff Nixon was doing, or Nixon was committing crime, but stuff Clinton was doing. I mean, the Mark Rich pardon alone, to me, is no less corrupt than Trump's Ukraine thing.
Sure, but you know what? You weren't at the point in Clinton's administration with Mark Rich, which I agree with you that the Mark Rich pardon was corrupt. It was corrupt. It was abuse of power. It was pay to play.
Selling a Lincoln bedroom, the travels. There's a million things.
Look, there's a million things. Look, I'm not here as a...
Or committing perjury.
I'm not here as a Clinton cheerleader.
Yeah.
But the things that Trump has done, I mean, the Ukraine... And look, I was an impeachment skeptic on the Russia questions. I didn't think that because Mueller followed the OIC recommendations and wouldn't bring charges on obstruction particularly, which was open and shut on that.
Apparently not.
Well, no, it was. The OIC guidelines forbade him from doing so.
But why didn't the Congress, why didn't the House charge him with it?
The OIC hang on, there's still litigation running on all that stuff on the other side of this. There may still be evidence on that we end up having as additional charges down the line. There's a whole separate process. But Ukraine was such a bright line question, and it was such an easy question.
Why is it easy?
It's an easy question because of 3 reasons. One, he was corruptly seeking a private political benefit by asking a foreign power, by extorting a foreign power and saying, your aid will not be there unless I get what I want in terms of a hit on Joe Biden.
Once again for himself.
Secondly, he directed a abuse of his government power outside of the ability to do rescissions or budgetary authority. He broke the budgetary authority, which is what Congress passed and ordered. DOD doesn't get the ultimate discretion on how money that has been appropriated and authorized can be spent. He held that money illegally.
No.
That was after Nixon, the Something Control Act, right?
Yeah.
He did not hold it illegally. And the evidence I'll give you that he did not hold illegally is that he was not charged. But the reason we don't have that evidence, that evidence is that no one in the White House is being allowed to testify. Okay. That brings us to the third part. They never subpoenaed the people in the White House.
On ongoing obstruction of justice.
They never subpoenaed the people in the White House.
It's an ongoing obstruction of justice.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a administration that has a very unique view of executive power, and that's why I go back to the existential question. They have a unique view of executive power that goes beyond any other Republican or Democrat. It goes beyond the wildest unitary executive fantasies of any prior president.
Okay, I may or may not agree with you, but this is what I don't understand. Tell me if I'm wrong here. At this point, in my opinion, everything is irrelevant other than what is in the articles of impeachment. At the point when we've gone through all these things and these are and claimed that this is illegal and all that stuff, and then the prosecutor declined to bring any of them and reduced his charges to A, B, and C. And if you want to bring up D, E, and F now, I say that's out of bounds. D, E, and F.
Why is it out of bounds?
Because
if you get additional information, you get additional witnesses.
There's no additional information.
There's plenty of additional. What about John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, Mick Mulvaney? None of those people have spoken at all.
No,
they've stonewalled completely. They've been part of a conspiracy to obstruct justice.
Hold on, that's simply not true. Bolton clearly telegraphed that he wanted to testify.
Would you like to hear from him?
Of course, I'd like to hear from him. They and as not I brought character again. They declined to subpoena him. It would have taken a month or two at the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court would have decided.
Actually, what's happened now with a lot of these cases with the administration,
way longer than
it's
that.
not.
No, it would not. No, it would not take.
None of the circuit judges are doing expedited consideration for these questions. These things are going to drag on for 2 or 3 years,
that is
not months.
Not the case. The Nixon tapes went before the Supreme Court right away.
But right now, all the things that the House has been doing, the litigation the House has pursued, has been slow rolled by the courts. And there's an article about it in the Washington Post 2 days ago that's been slow rolled by the courts, and they're not able to say, okay, we can subpoena Bolton and we'll get to see him in 2 weeks.
This does not hold water at all.
Otherwise,
I'm going to tell you why it doesn't hold water. No, I don't know why they didn't, but
You think that they could issue a subpoena and get Bolton in 2 weeks? You believe that?
2 months.
You believe that they could get him within 2 months if they subpoenaed
I believe they could do the following easily. They could subpoena him, file their articles of impeachment as they did, wait for the subpoena to come through, then add another article if they wanted to. It was clear that for some reason they didn't. But
the administration should consider that.
Does anybody not understand how absurd it is to ask the president for some, witness from within the executive branch, and like every other president, including Obama, by the way, the president declares executive privilege. We have separation of powers. We have a court that gets to decide whether this is proper or not. And rather than use our system, we're gonna make this a reason to impeach, to remove him.
Wait 2 years.
This doesn't pass any kind of logic.
Well, wait a minute. Let me tell you what the logic is. The logic is a guy is trying to cheat for the next election. By the time the courts By the time the courts get the witnesses to testify, the next election will have happened already.
No,
they cannot get these witnesses in a short span of time that they're talking about.
John,
they would have done it.
John, I'm telling you, I've done some reading about this. I haven't read anybody who thinks that they wouldn't have been able to get Bolton to testify in time. It may move closer to the election, which, by the way, would have been good for the Democrats, because I'll tell you why I thought they made a mistake. Trump's not getting removed. So the further away this failure happens from the election, the more forgotten it is. Wouldn't it be better to have Bolton testifying in October? Wouldn't it be better to actually have the impeachment trial the month before the November election, because he's not going to get removed, but then it's fresh and everybody goes to the polls? Wouldn't it be the best thing for the Democrats to go to the polls in the midst of the witnesses testifying? You follow my argument?
I understand what you're saying.
Arguing the political thing. I'm telling you that the courts...
Every decision they made was political.
I'm telling you that the courts are moving slower than that.
That's
all I'm saying.
I just have a question.
It's not a custody battle.
I just have a question, and this sort of goes back to what Rick was talking about earlier about your experience with ads and all that. Mm-hmm. I wonder just how much of all this stuff is just being played out in public, in the news, in memes, on social media and all that, where it's almost like it's kind of taking the power out of the people who are supposed to actually be enforcing it, in a way, where it's sort of like, I don't know if there's something where it's like, ooh, how are people responding to this? Ooh, they don't like that. Let's go.
Oh no! Look, all these things are actually very carefully monitored. They're very carefully studied. Data science underpins everything now in politics. And so if the Trump...
Not the Trump, it doesn't.
You broke character again.
What? I broke character. No, I would say that he goes by his gut. That's not...
No, let me tell you. When they posted that picture of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer with Islamic headgear on, I promise you, they went out and ran that ad. They that tweet. They A/B tested the response to that with probably 10 or 20,000 Facebook people. They watched how the likes flowed on it. They identified the people that liked it. They now put those people in a basket in their data file that says people who like anti-Islamic memes. This stuff is very carefully studied. It's very carefully digitized. This numinous cloud of data that surrounds everybody now is an enormous political weapon. And it's being monetized and weaponized every day.
So I think at this point, whoever likes Trump, whoever against him. So the election is coming soon. How do we beat Trump? I know you're one of the
Wait, I want to ask one more question.
About Trump?
About this whole impeachment thing. And then yeah.
Impeachment and then election.
So from the other side, I would say the following. There are interviews floating around on the internet of two of the Ukrainian prosecutors, I can't remember, Shokin and Lutsenko or whatever. I don't remember. Sorry. Both of them saying, yes, we were pressured not to do anything with Burisma, saying blah, 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 whatever it is. And to me, in a technical sense, the fact that these former Ukrainian prosecutors are saying these things, I know we're supposed to say that's ridiculous. It can't be, we don't know. That is all the president needs to say, I had a right to look into this. And I think if you were to ask his supporters, his voters, would you like the president to look into that? They would say, yes, we want to know what the hell was going on with Biden and his son. And that to me is why it's not impeachable unless...
Wait. The one area of the world where Donald Trump personally intervenes with a foreign leader and says, hey, you need to intervene and investigate my chief political rival because of corruption in your country. That's such horseshit I can't even see straight.
Well,
because this is a guy who extorted a foreign leader for a personal political benefit. It was not for the U.S. It was not to clean up Ukrainian corruption.
And he would have us believe that.
It was so that he could get an oppo dump on Joe Biden.
Okay.
And just before you say
except that they speak out. Go ahead, John.
Before you say something, Noam. Yeah. So to me, that is the fault line between what is this guy doing and why is he doing it. It's not that he's doing everything wrong. Is investigating corruption a good thing? Yeah, it's a good thing. Why is he doing it? That's what I
Why
think
only there? Why only there?
And that's what his decisions are based on to me.
Well, do you think Saudi isn't corrupt up the ass?
No, of course it is.
I mean,
whoa.
I think that
North Korea, China.
I would say that I would say that an extremely opportunistic decision, which clearly it is not impeachable if the decision is still can be considered in the national interest. Politicians make decisions like that all the time. Listen, obviously I think we all agree that Hunter Biden story.
I don't think so.
That's a kind of last refuge of scoundrels argument.
Maybe, but you're talking about removing a president. You're talking about overturning an election. That Hunter Biden story stinks to high heaven, and I think it's worse than people are making it out to be. I've made this. I can do it quickly. When Hunter Biden, when the Ukrainians when Burisma offered Hunter Biden the job, obviously they offered. Stop me if you disagree. They offered it to him because his father was the vice president. By taking the job, he was tacitly telling them, yes, I can deliver my father. Otherwise, why else would you hire me? Once he takes the job, the vice president, Joe Biden, he's certainly savvy enough to understand what just went on. And what does he do? He plays golf with the board members of Burisma, to my mind, to indicate to them, yeah, this is the equivalent of Frankie Pentangeli's brother showing up in Godfather Part 2, and all he has to do is sit there, and everybody understands what's going on here. It's hands off. It's hands off, and that's what seems to me went on in Ukraine. And I don't think Joe Biden is corrupt in terms of I don't know what, but I think that it's a pretty pretty ugly, dirty, stinking thing that he
But
allowed
again,
to happen.
to John's
and
point,
I think for a president to discover this, to have the prosecutors tell him, we have evidence that this was corrupt. The ambassador came.
You mean the notoriously corrupt Paul Manafort connected prosecutors?
The
You mean
Ukrainian,
the former prosecutors, Shulkin, who is
Yes.
notoriously corrupt, who is a Manafort connected. He's with the prior administration that had been thrown out.
This is where you guys lose me. Notoriously corrupt. It's been debunked. Blah blah blah. This was all the same stuff we heard during.
Okay,
the Russia. Hold on. This is all the same stuff.
better.
Hold on. This is all the same stuff we heard during the Russia thing. These adjectives get thrown around, and I've spent a good amount of time. Like they called this thing debunked. I have spent hours trying to find where it's been debunked. I mean, I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying somebody says it gets repeated, and before you know it, it's the conventional wisdom. I'm just saying, if you're president and a prosecutor tells you, the ambassador told me it's hands off Burisma and these following people.
So wait,
and
do you?
And
wait,
Giuliani clearly believes it. You think Giuliani believes it?
I think he's. That's a whole separate matter.
No, it's not a separate matter.
It is a totally separate matter. Let me do one thing first.
It's not a separate matter. Go ahead.
There's no record
Yeah.
in the U.S. government
Yeah.
at all, and the Ambassador Hill, and the other folks from the State Department all testified that there was never any hands-off Burisma order from the U.S. of any kind. Of any kind. They were never. They testified. Ambassador Hill and the others testified. Her name is escaping me at the moment. They said that is a false. That is a false. False statement. They never issued to the. They never said to the Ukrainian government hands off Burisma. That is a lie.
Have you? You don't know if it's a lie. Have you seen?
Wait. They testified under oath, under criminal penalty of perjury, that is a lie.
Maria Yovanovitch.
Have you seen?
That's Yovanovitch.
Have you seen
Maria
the
Yovanovitch.
interview with whoever? I don't want to get whichever long Ukrainian name it was, where he said, "No, she didn't give me a written thing. She told us the names of people."
And she said during her testimony that is a lie.
As did
So she
Fiona
said-
Hill.
As did Fiona Hill. Then there's no record. And look, the State Department, I know the State Department pretty well. They don't go do things just randomly like that.
So she says it's a lie, and it may be a lie, but the Ukrainian prosecutor says it's true.
The notoriously corrupt Paul Manafort connected Ukrainian prosecutor.
The notoriously corrupt prosecutor. So the president, so Giuliani apparently really believes this is true, and he tells the president, Giuliani's the one who sucked him into all this, and the president says, I want this looked into. And at that point, he's committed an impeachable offense that he should be removed for. He says, I want to, and by the way, there's something that nobody's, I'm going to say one other thing.
The impeachable offense comes when he says, I will hold your money until you give me an investigation and an oppo dump on Joe Biden.
So oppo dump is your words. And it's something very interesting. Do you remember what he said? He says, I want you to look into this Biden thing. He didn't say Joe Biden. I think he's talking about Hunter Biden.
No, come on.
No, I'm just being accurate about what he said.
And again, is there any other place that you can show me where Donald Trump has mentioned corruption, cares about?
I'm getting to. I think it's important. I think it's helpful to separate the factual rendition of what was said, and it's fine to say what you think it actually meant. But to blend them together, someone's listening, they think he said, I want you to go after Joe Biden. What you're saying is that in your mind, it's pretty clear he meant Joe Biden. I'm just saying what he said, because he'll claim, I didn't mean Joe Biden. But this is what's interesting. He said, okay, I want you to work with my attorney general on this, which is something that nobody talks about. In other words, he didn't say, let's have some under the table conversation about, investigation about this. What he said was, shockingly, he said, okay, I want you to work with the attorney general on this, meaning an above board investigation.
So,
which to me means it's perfect. If he is going to, whatever you think about it, if he says he's going to say, listen, I want.
Was there a condition placed on them? Did they hold up their aid?
But wait a minute.
As a condition of doing this investigation?
But
he can do that.
But they keep trying to shrink it down to this conversation. If
it's illegal, they should charge.
Just hear me out. Just hear me out. This full court press that they were running on Ukraine started months before that conversation, he was sending Giuliani over. Giuliani said this on television. I'm over there looking for dirt. This wasn't this wasn't a once off. He had a full court press. He was fired. He fired Maria Yovanovitch. He had Fiona Hill in trouble. This wasn't some conversation.
John, you're making the case to me that Trump did something that was really foul. Question in my mind is, where is this line all of a sudden that presidents who do? I mean, Obama looked right in the camera and said, "If you want your doctor, you can keep it. You want your plan, keep it."
We're not going back.
No, I'm making an analogy. And it came out that it was the lie of the year, the Washington Post. I mean, and he had a drastic effect on the country, much more than anything. And I mean, you can't even compare it to Ukraine. And nobody thought that was impeachable.
So hold on. So
where does something totally foul become impeachable?
These false equivalents are insane. You're talking about a country who's in a shooting war. That this guy's holding up money so that he can get the president to go in front of a microphone on CNN and say that they were investigating.
They were not affected by this.
He sought a private political benefit
for himself
by extorting a foreign government by withholding their aid.
He did that. He did that. The Biden thing, not because of corruption, because it's personal benefit from, like John said. Because if it was about corruption, what about the Clinton? He promised that Hillary Clinton would be investigated in the election.
I'm trying.
Right?
I just don't understand. So, if I'm the president and they come to me and say
there's million corruption, you pick this one.
No,
why?
And they come to me and say, "Look, you're about to give all this money in aid," and by the way, within the Obama administration, they were aware that there's something wasn't right here. They told some people to stop asking about it. Don't bring it up to the vice president.
What year did this all happen? Do you guys remember what year Hunter Biden was hired and working over there?
2015, I think. So I'm guessing.
I don't know.
They knew that came out in the hearing too. They knew that this looked bad, but I think that everybody's not wanting to understand is that it's one thing to look at it from the point of view of the people who oppose Trump. But if you look at it from the point of view of the people who voted for him, they do view rooting out, uncovering the unseemly behavior in the previous administration as in the national interest. They don't see this as they see it as an innate good to uncover what was going on.
So the children of senior officials receiving a benefit, as Hunter Biden did, nobody disputes that.
Joe Biden disputes it.
Is an unequivocally bad thing, and we must pursue it. Correct? Is that the Trump rule? Because
we're following that.
Because if that's the argument, Jared Kushner's family got $1 billion bailout from a Qatari-based bank.
Wait a minute. After they put Qatar on the bad country list.
After they isolated Qatar, Ivanka Trump has been raking up trademarks and patents in China.
I think it's 13 now.
Yeah,
we're off.
So we should,
we're not.
Look into that.
If this is the rule, if this is what we're going to pursue on corruption,
I think
if the children of senior officials are going to be held as something that we must investigate if corruption surrounds them.
$1 billion loan that's about to go belly up in April should definitely be looked into.
That the president can look into corruption if he wants, even if it's opportunistic. And if the Congress wants to make that illegal,
but can he, in your mind, seek a private political? He wasn't saying to Ukraine, "Clean yourselves up so your lives will be better." He was saying, "Report to me. Give me opposition research on Joe Biden or Hunter Biden, whichever the case was. It all accrues to the Bidens. And seeking a private political benefit that only helps him, doesn't help anything else. Doesn't help Ukraine. Doesn't help America.
Fair enough.
It just helps him."
So let me ask you this question: exact same facts, except Biden's not running for president. Could Trump do it?
No, still couldn't do it.
So why?
If you extort a foreign power for personal,
why would it be personal gain if Biden's not running for president?
If he is seeking any kind of personal gain, if he said to the Saudi Arabians, "Hey, dump $1 billion into $1 billion into my personal bank account," it would be equally corrupt.
Are you really saying that the president can't say, "Listen, I heard that something may not be right here. I want to put you in touch with my attorney general."
And the result that you're going to give me is going to help me in my election campaign against my chief opponent, whoever the opponent is.
I said the scenario, the hypothetical that Biden's not running.
If it still accrues to his personal political or financial benefit,
for him personally.
Political benefit? Presidents can't do things that accrue to their political benefit?
They cannot use the power of their office.
The levers of the
They do it all the time.
They cannot use their political office corruptly to accumulate
It's not corruptly unless it's
benefit.
all right.
So
I don't see any clear.
Let's move on
bright
because
line then.
I want to talk about the actual election and how we beat Trump and the tricks and all that. So you're one of the co-founders of the Lincoln Project.
Yep.
So can you tell us about it and how is it different from the Never?
Is that like log cabin Republicans, or is it?
That's the gay.
I'm sorry.
Well, we're all straight.
Wanna lighten
We're all straight
things
as
up
far
a
as I
little
know.
So what is the Lincoln Project?
No hate. The Lincoln Project is four of us who are kind of senior guys in the Republican.
Who is it?
It's me, Steve Schmidt, a guy named Reed Galen, and a guy named John Weaver. And all of us have been around the block more than a couple times. We've run big campaigns all over the country. We've done big ad campaigns for the parties. We've done big ad campaigns for the presidential races, and the four of us are all pretty deeply committed to trying to preserve what we signed up for: limited government, individual liberty, constitutional adherence, rule of law. The old-fashioned kind of Republican Party.
So
it's out of fashion.
History is going to be very kind to you guys.
Well,
So how
It's ironic to name it after the guy who suspended habeas corpus. But anyway, go ahead.
So how is it different from the Never Trump movement before? Like, why would you guys be able to do what they
Never Trump was sort of this scattered and atomized movement. And look, the Never Trump contingent in the Republican Party is about 10, maybe 15% on a good day.
Okay.
The ones that would speak out about it, you could put us around the table at a Waffle House. It wasn't a big, sweeping, public-facing group.
Yeah, I remember when you guys were called human scum.
Yeah, we were human scum.
And I was thinking like, oh man, but I actually like a lot of the Never Trumpers. I guess I'm like human scum adjacent.
That's problematic.
From the outside looking in, to me, the Never Trump thing is more of this guy is, he sucks, whatever. I don't know. I feel like you guys' group is saying, let's do something. Something needs to be done.
And that is the difference between,
Yeah.
Look, Never Trump, there was a lot of complaining.
Yeah.
And admittedly, even me, I was like puzzled for like a year and a half, like, how are we going to get together and actually take political steps that are meaningful in terms of, putting a smack on this guy?
So you would be the Lincoln Project is against Trump regardless of who's running, even if Warren is.
We're going to
running.
do our very best to ensure, because look, my ideological predicates and principles are one thing, but I truly believe that Trump presents so many dangers to this country, both politically and economically and morally and legally, that I can live with Elizabeth Warren. I can live with Joe Biden.
Really?
I'm not going to love it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to wake up every day and go, woohoo.
So let's have a thought experiment. Let's say Elizabeth Warren had been elected in 2016. We might have a majority liberal Supreme Court now limiting.
We would not,
Why not?
because you still wouldn't have a majority.
You'd have two justices.
You might, but you would have a Republican Senate still in that scenario. You still had a Republican Senate. So she's not going to be able to push through, people on the far edge of the.
Not the far edge,
window.
but leaning. It wouldn't be the Supreme. It would be different than the court we have now in some way.
Like another
some way would be
Kagan,
to the
Sotomayor.
left.
Maybe no, you'd probably get another Kennedy, basically.
Well, except Kennedy was a very strong free speech advocate, and I mean, I think you probably agree with me, being conservative, that free speech is really not valued on the left these days.
No,
You agree with that?
no, very much so.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that's a big worry with a President Warren's maybe not a President Biden, but a President Warren Supreme Court. We might have a Supreme Court that that brought that into question. What else would we have? Well, what do you think? What do you think about the way he handled Iran?
look, the machine that we built for basically hunting down and whacking bad guys, that was built, basically by George Bush, inherited by Barack Obama. He used it. I have no mercy for Soleimani. He was a bad guy.
Sure.
He was a terrible, terrible guy.
No offense, Hatem. Go ahead.
I gave his location.
We're sorry.
But
That was me, damn it.
But what we've seen with Donald Trump in foreign affairs is that this is a guy who is easily tricked. This is a guy.
Kim Jong-il.
But I hate to
Un.
say that because I'm against it. But he moved the American embassy to
Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv.
To
which-
Jerusalem.
to Jerusalem, which no one of the president. So I mean, he did something that maybe foreign policy for the Jews.
Well, let the record show he pointed at me.
Yeah. so regardless of who's running, you against Trump.
Yeah, we're gonna oppose Donald Trump.
Okay. So what do you think he can win 2020? And did you expect him to win 2016?
So I did not expect him to win 2016, and no one else did, including Donald Trump.
Uh-huh.
The night of the election, a very senior Trump official, one you see on TV all the time, called me and said, "Oh my fucking God, this guy was so insane. I can't wait to have a steak dinner and tell you this whole story. Motherfucker, I can't wait to be out of here." And about 2 hours later, this individual calls me and it's like, "Oh shit, what have we done?"
Yeah.
He carefully hid the gender in that story, which makes me think it's a woman. I'm gonna try to.
Can I just tell
I'm
you?
gonna go with Kellyanne Conway. That's my guess.
That's very smart.
I was hosting.
Because people say he. You know, then when you say that's individual, it's a woman.
Hey,
I was hosting a show in Virginia right after a couple days after the tower got hit, brand new in comedy, and I was afraid because I was like, people are in a really crazy mood. That crowd, the show went on and it was normal. I also hosted downstairs at the Village Underground.
Oh God!
The night after Trump was elected, and I actually had to stop the show. That's how September 11th was worse than Trump being elected. I had to stop the show and say, "Listen, we all know what happened. You know what I mean? There's nothing we can do about it now. We may as well enjoy this show."
Viva la resistance!
Yes.
Resistance.
A couple people started with a slow clap, and then finally, but that's the worst I had ever on stage felt like a cloud over the entire room.
Okay, and here we are 4 years later,
yeah.
and none of it came true. Almost none of it came true.
I have a story too, but I can't say it in the air. I'll tell you after.
None of what came
apocalyptic.
true.
Although I had people in tears. Wall Street Journal reporter in tears because she thought this actually was the end of the United States government. I'm like, well, how exactly? Like, do you think the army is going to take arms to defend Donald Trump despite a court order that
Well, Rick is very concerned.
he's never going to
here.
leave office?
Very concerned here.
if anybody's looking to,
And knows a lot of people on the inside.
So, Rick,
There is the interesting argument. I'm sorry that what is it? What additional mischief is possible that he's unconstrained by another election? In a second
forget
term,
about
a
it.
second term Donald Trump.
Sure, yeah. So how do we beat him?
Look, you got to do three things.
Yeah.
First is you got to fight where the fight is. And there are about 15 electoral college states where this election really happens. I know how Mississippi is going to vote, okay? Doesn't matter. Mississippi doesn't matter. I know how California is going to vote. Doesn't matter. You don't get extra bonus electoral college votes. Where those states, about 35 of them, they're done. It's over. North Dakota is going to vote Republican.
You mean the 35 states that Hillary decided to campaign in?
Yes, the 35 states. Yes. I mean, there's your fundamental flaw right there.
Good point.
She decided to take a vacation from Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Michigan.
Bill told her,
Yeah.
Stop. I can't even.
didn't he? That's what I read.
Yeah, they were playing for North Carolina, which was not in their reach. And so anyway, so you got to fight in those key electoral college states. Mm-hmm. You've got to win Florida. It's the big thing. It's the big kahuna. It's the huge prize. It's 29 electoral college votes. You lose Florida, you're fucked. It's over. It's done. Put a fork in it.
but the governor's doing really well, right?
He's doing really well, but he ran and won as a Trumper, but man, he has been in the tall goddamn grass since then.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he has been like, Donald who? What? That guy?
I feel like they have a and you tell me I could be wrong. Harry would be a great person to ask about this.
Harry Enton is a good friend of CNN. He's a good friend
I know
of
Harry.
ours.
Yeah, I feel like they have almost like a conveyor belt of conservatives coming down there because you always got old people moving down there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and look, you know who votes in elections?
You know what I mean?
You know who votes
like
in
the
elections?
chicken and Bugs Bunny person.
Yeah, you know who votes in elections? Old people.
Yeah.
Right, but
Old people vote.
But I think that's why Florida is so tough.
Yeah.
It is. Look, the median age in Florida is like 69 years old.
Right. So
And
I don't know why aren't Democrats looking elsewhere then?
The problem is there aren't a lot of other elsewheres.
What about Texas?
How many times in our history
Texas is worse.
Not Latino enough?
Texas is much harder than Florida. The problem in Texas that Democrats haven't worked out in their head yet is a lot of Hispanics, especially first and second generation Hispanics from Mexico, are very Catholic or increasingly very evangelical, and they're pro-life. They're not the abortion thing is not working for them in Texas.
Also, you're dealing with a state without.
Now we
income
may
tax
have
as well.
a different change going on there because of the immigration stuff. That may accelerate the phase change there.
So what would you do in Florida to ensure that they?
Well, first off, in Florida, you've got to go and you've got to not kill yourself. And the Democrats, and as a Florida guy for years, the Democrats lose in Florida over the issue that they
guns, right?
They can't stop touching the hot stove.
Yeah.
Everything north of the I-4 corridor between Tampa and Orlando,
The Panhandle.
the Panhandle, is like Alabama,
Yes, it
only
is.
more conservative. I live there. I can tell you, these people, including every white male Democrat, including most African American guys that I know, they hunt. They have guns. They like guns. Guns are a thing in Florida. The Democrats don't even understand their own people. In Florida, there are 1.7 million concealed carry permits. We did a study. About 38% of those people
Democrats.
are Democrats. About half of those people live in Broward, Dade, Palm Beach, and Miami, or Miami itself, Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach counties.
Can I put what you're saying in a much broader sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think what the Democrats need to do to start winning. Stop looking down their nose at the other half of America.
I write about it in the book.
What
I
the hell
write
is
about
it?
it in the book.
They speak so contemptuous. Reporters talk about toothless people at Trump rallies. It makes my skin crawl.
So
the arrogance, the way they talk about people they disagree
also-
with.
So I guess the question will be.
I was just going to say something about, and then also, you have all these calls for, eradicating the Electoral College. I mean, what does that tell the states? That.
They're never going to eradicate.
It's that,
No, but it's that use of language.
but Democrats
that
jerking themselves off over getting rid of the Electoral College. If you want to try to get rid of it, pass a constitutional amendment. It's not easy, and you're not going to do it.
Not gonna happen.
But they like last year, Warren and Buttigieg and for the time Harris, they were all out. Oh, we're going to get rid of the Electoral College and really make it. No, you're not.
That was dumb.
No, you're not.
That's dumb.
So I guess the question is like, is Trump winning or the Democrats are losing? So how
I think
Look,
the
as I-
Democrats are losing.
Yeah.
the
that's-
Democrats are losing. I say this all the time.
Yeah, I
Trump
agree.
can't win, but the Democrats can sure as hell lose.
Yeah.
So how can you help that with your?
Well, look, one of the things that we talked about, the Electoral College thing, you got to fight where the fight is. The second thing is all elections, all re-election campaigns are a referendum on the incumbent. Every single one of them. You make a decision. In 2012, they said, do we want more Barack Obama? They said, yes, they did. In 1992, did they want more George H.W. Bush? No, they didn't. In 2004, did they want more George W. Bush because they felt secure at that time? Yeah, they did. This has got to be a referendum on Trump. Democrats who get out there and think, oh, my policy plan for this or that voters are going to read. No, they're not. They do not make decisions based on policy. They make decisions based on personality and connection and affect and celebrity, to be perfectly honest. And, none of these people in the Democratic field are a generational talent like a Barack Obama or a generational talent like a Bill Clinton.
Definitely
Let me tell you something. This without any basis.
And to be fair,
Yeah.
those were two tough guys to follow.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this without any basis, but I think that there are many other people who feel this way. For the first time in my life, I don't feel that the election is a referendum on Donald Trump. I feel the referendum is an election on the left. The election is a referendum on the left. I so abhor the left, what they stand for, how they're coming for us, how they're coming for free speech, cancel culture, political correctness, these ridiculous now you have to say Latinx, despite that only 2% of Latinos want to be called Latin. All this stuff.
Who's the us they're coming for?
Me. People feel like me.
I'm just wondering who this.
Hold on. The actual the contemptuousness that they feel towards small businesses, the way they want to saddle us with everything and call us bad guys, everything de Blasio stands for, all of it. This is such a big well of resentment within me. It's the only reason I would consider voting for Trump. It's just anybody but them. Anybody but this left wing. There's
you
never
know what?
been.
I do wonder-
This is not Bill
Can I-
Clinton. This is not Barack Obama.
Can I say
This
something?
is the Twitter left in Elizabeth Warren and Bernie said, like Mayor Bloomberg, great. Joe Biden, I could live with it. Even Mayor Pete, although he really turned me off by who blames
He turned you off?
I'll tell you what kind of nonsense is this? You cannot kill the man who killed 600 Americans, because a freak accident might occur. And if that freak accident occurs, its blood is on your hands, Donald Trump. You should have known. Like, you can't kill that murderer of Americans because the Iranians might shoot down their own airline. This is who I'm going to vote for? These are the people we're going to put in charge? This is the great superior to Donald Trump thinking?
One thing
I was just going to say, so, back in 2016, there are how many people who voted for Trump as a big fuck you to the left.
Sure.
And now it's like, oh my God, have those numbers grown? Because with the shit that's been happening, I could totally see that being.
What I'm saying speaks for you, doesn't it?
What?
What I'm saying.
Oh, no, a lot of it, yeah.
Look,
I hate the class warfare bullshit. I hate all that.
Go ahead, John.
I'm with you. I think there's an exhaustion. I never, ever debate with people online. I love that this guy does, but I never. but yeah, no knock on you. I just can't. But I did jump into the fray with a guy the other day, and the point that I made to him, he never responded back, was, you guys are a coalition of hate. You just summed it all up. It has nothing to do with this guy's doing good. He's going to help us move in this direction, that direction. It's I hate them.
Yes.
And to me, that's where the Democrats can lose, because I hate them is powerful. That means it doesn't matter if he helps me, hurts me, doesn't matter what he does, as long as he still hates them. Yeah. And that's his power.
But one thing I talk about in the book is that Democrats don't understand themselves. Most Democrats in this country are not Bernie progs. The vast majority aren't. We've studied this a lot, and it's one of the tricks Republicans use for a generation.
Yeah.
Going out, look, I helped elect a Republican governor in Vermont 4 times. Not exactly a hotbed of liberal or of conservatism. We did it by having our guy connect with people better, by not being a dick all the time, by not being so in your face about his policies and his ideas. So the woke left on Twitter is deadly poison. They are such a small and I seriously, I break this down.
Every Democratic candidate is obedient to them, except
A+ for obesity.
Elizabeth Warren saying that was it non-binary people are the backbone of the
Julian Castro saying we've got to provide abortion services for trans women. No, you don't.
Well, how about this? How about it's an outrage that on college campuses now, a student accused of a sexual assault or something has the right to defend himself. This is what the new Trump,
or to have a lawyer.
They became the people that I'm supposed to vote for became apoplectic at this outrageous emergence of civil liberties on college campuses. Sure. That this is, and look how they went after. Even I almost went along with the Kavanaugh thing, except that now, as it turned out, it's good to have presumptions of innocence, because look at how the Kavanaugh story basically fell apart, at least in terms of anything that would stick. Where her best friend, Kaiser is her name. Leyland Kaiser, Dr. Ford's best friend, said she doesn't even believe the story, and she was there.
Look, I mean, again, the excesses of woke Twitter and of the scoldy left. I go out at this in the book. This is not selling to the middle America. And if your electoral college map is 3 states on the West Coast and 4 states on the East Coast, you're going to have to work really hard to win the presidency. Really, really hard.
So I have a question for you, for the project, for Lincoln Project. Which would be the best Democrat nominee for you?
I say this all the time. I'm not trying to pick the Democratic nominee, and I'm really.
But who would be?
Honestly,
I'm sure you know.
There are 3 factors involved. Name ID in politics is the =1 most magical power of all.
So that's 2 out.
So that's why Donald Trump, in part 1, people thought they knew who he was. They knew that name. He was a brand for 25 years. The second thing is
being over 75.
You want somebody who doesn't scare the shit out of people.
Yeah.
And as a Republican, I want Bernie Sanders. If I'm a Republican working for Trump, I want Bernie Sanders all day long. I will turn him into the biggest caricature of crazy socialist poetry professor from Vermont.
You won't have to work very hard.
Dirt hippie, the whole thing. I'd have a fucking field day with that guy. But Biden is the guy who ticks most of the boxes off for name ID. Look, if I was making a candidate up out of thin air, I'd want a super articulate young military veteran Democrat from an industrial Midwest state. I don't have that.
And no malarkey.
No damn malarkey.
That's right.
All right. Well, I forget what I was going to say. What did you want to say?
So no, we keep talking about the election. How do you expect Trump to win?
Oh, I remember.
Do you think it's?
I remember what I was going to say.
You have to remember after my question.
Well, do you expect Trump to win?
Yeah, right now.
So I think.
I mean, look.
How many? Let's just hypothetical. How many states would John Kasich versus Bernie Sanders? How many states would John Kasich win? Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that
46.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that I think that
45.
What I think is that people may be getting lost here is that the second that the Democratic Party has moved so far left that whether they believe it or they just feel they can't go against the Twitter mob, whatever it is, that a moderate Jeb Bush, John Kasich, a moderate John McCain type Republican would clean the floor with the Democratic Party now.
Let's call this hypothetical candidate John Rubio.
Yes.
Okay. John Rubio gets the nomination, and he's basically in the same frame that year 2000 George W. Bush was. And remember, we all think about Bush only through the prism of 9/11 and the war. The campaign was about education,
compassionate
conservatism, immigration reform, economic empowerment, home ownership. So let's say that guy, let's say John Rubio ran on that platform. He would roll Bernie Sanders up everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, can I just say this? The idea
that's profound.
The idea that a John Rubio would make it through this bigoted Republican Party
now
is
that
fucking laughable.
Oh, they would. He would.
That's
fucking laughable.
That's why it's a pure thought experiment.
No, you're
completely laughable.
You're wrong because not this election cycle,
laughable.
but Trump is a singular character. If Trump hadn't run, you would have had John Rubio as the Republican candidate.
Also, just so you guys know, Rubio means blonde. So, John Blonde.
Trump is a singular character who has them believing, oh yeah, this was the right way to go. We have been telling these people for years that this is who we are, and finally we got a guy to say the shit that there's nothing the Republican Party couldn't have got without Trump sitting there.
Don't you understand what you're missing, in my opinion? You know what the alternative to Trump complaining about the border is? And I think they don't say, yes, we agree we should control the border, and here's how we'll do it, and we don't need the excesses of Donald Trump.
Right. It's free health care for every illegal.
We want to decriminalize it. Free health care. Free.
No, I'm a
let
lefty.
Me finish.
No, hear me
Just
out.
let me. No, I'm not hearing you out in the middle of my sentence. Let me finish my sentence.
I'm a lefty, and I agree with you.
But let me get it out. We're going to decriminalize it. Free cradle to grave health care for anybody who gets in, so that you can come over on a tourist visa, land at Kennedy, never leave, and then get your sex change operation provided for by the time. This is their alternative to Donald Trump.
I'm a lefty, and it sounds insane.
Well, that's right. So that's what I'm saying. This is not this. That's why I have trouble seeing it as a referendum on Trump. I'm like, if that is the alternative they're presenting, I'm like, yeah, this guy's really flawed, but you guys are crazy.
No, I agree. I'm a lefty, and I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. It sounds insane. I couldn't believe some of the shit they were saying on the debate stage. But I don't. But with that being said, I do believe that South Carolina will be a firewall for Joe Biden, so that we don't have that every prisoner should be able to get a sex.
I think Biden's doing better in Iowa than people think.
I think you're right.
I think Biden's doing better in New Hampshire than people think. I don't think he'll win New Hampshire, but I think he's going to show. And I think you're right. The firewall in South Carolina is going to hold. Biden's doing very well in Florida. He'll start when we get into the big states that are going to wrap up a lot of delegates. Biden has still got a lot of union support. He's got African American support. He's got mainstream Democratic support, and he's strongest with the older voters who are the most likely.
Translation: black don't crack.
If you could take the category of candidate that Joe Biden is in terms of how you would pick someone to run against Donald Trump, and rank them in order, he's probably the last on the list in that category in terms of he is so doddering. It's so uncertain what may come out of his mouth, whether he can run sentences together. I would be so nervous worrying about this guy running for president because because whatever it is, Donald Trump is robust. And actually he seems less crazy than he did a few years ago. He's less crazy thing.
But I tell you, there's one thing.
Fewer crazy.
I think there's a lot of undercover Trump supporters. Like I know I talk to a lot of people in here in New York, and they like, everybody else is bad. So how would you
Look,
approach that?
this is a big challenge.
Yeah.
You have to do a lot of, look, the Lincoln Project and other outside groups, we can only do so much. We can only move the needle so much. If the Democrats run a campaign that they should run, work the Electoral College, don't scare the shit out of people, nominate somebody who can bring a case against Trump and be a counterweight and make this a referendum on Trump, there's a shot. It's a narrow path, and they don't have a lot of margin for error, and they also can't indulge their ideological fantasies.
Are you working with the Democratic Party right now or no?
No. No.
Would you be able to? Or?
Would I be able to? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a free agent now.
Okay. Yeah.
I was so disappointed in this Iran thing, the way they handled it, and the press. It really, like, what did they think? When the guy we talked last
what did
week,
they think the grassroots American reaction would be to killing an Iranian terrorist mastermind?
Yes, that's good. That's number one.
I mean, call me crazy, but that's when you go.
Is that punching up or punching down? Just wondering.
It's so funny. But what did they think the reaction would be? Like, you're the Ayatollah and you're blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden the guy right next to you is blown into 1,000 pieces, and they act like no, he's going to double down. No, he's not going to double down, because he knows, is better than our press seems to know, that in 48 hours there would be no more Iran. We don't want to occupy Iran. We're not going to make the same mistake we made in Iraq. We're going to blow up every single oil refinery. We're going to sink every single ship. We're going to blow up their whatever airplanes are on the ground, and we'll do that in 48 to 72 hours. And we'll have a drone pick off the Ayatollah. Like, why did they not understand that he was going to back down? Like, what? Just like Gaddafi did. It was nobody's compared it, but it's just like when they bombed Gaddafi's tent. Gaddafi, remember what he did?
It was Operation El Dorado Canyon, 1986.
No, but do you remember what Gaddafi did in return? I don't expect you to remember.
The German discotheque.
He shot off a few Scuds, and they went over the target, just like Iran,
Actually,
almost exact same response. And then he was never heard from again.
I'll tell you a funny story about that incident, inside information. He, as soon as the hit, he named the months of the year: revenge, hate America, kill America. Like,
really?
And he had a plan that each month he's going to do something.
He didn't really have a plan. His plan was to stay
I know,
alive.
but that's what he told the people. So this month is called Airspace America. This month.
What if it's your birthday and now it's like hate America? It's like,
I know. Damn.
Do we all agree that these apocalyptic martyr preaching cult leaders very often value life a lot more than they let on?
If they didn't value death so much, they wouldn't sleep in a different place every night.
That's right.
Sure.
If they didn't fear death so much.
And that's a line I stole from a guy who planned the air war in 1991 against Saddam the first time, where Saddam came out and gave a speech. We love death more than you love life, and blah blah blah. And
he has body.
And this
double.
Air Force general looks over at me and goes, because I was working at the Defense Department at the time for Dick Cheney. And this Air Force general looks over at me and goes, well, that sumbitch every night drives around in a beater car and finds some apartment to sleep in. So I guess he does value his life.
That's a good impression. So then you agree with me in this sense that there clearly is, and that doesn't mean anything you've said is wrong. It clearly is a Trump derangement syndrome when fine foreign policy minds and journalists couldn't see a very common sense possibility that this was going to be a productive thing.
Now, look, I think Iran still gets a vote on this. I think they may do something asymmetric. Absolutely. I think they may do something deniable.
They were predicting World War III. Why did they predict that?
Look, part of it was that the smart play, a smart President Wilson, let's just hypothetically say, I would have whacked Soleimani at some point and never said a fucking word about it.
Yeah.
Then you leave your adversary thinking, oh shit, they can reach out and touch me anytime. They're not going to take a victory lap. They're not going to brag about it. That's a great power. As opposed to Trump has to get his dick out and
that's Trump. But nevertheless, why was a uniform prediction of disaster when the most obvious thing is what I said, the calculation is, well, we have no chance in fighting them. And he's aiming for me next.
Like I said, I don't think that this is over. I think Iran still gets a vote. I think that the Quds Force and the IGRC still have an awful lot of smart and evil guys who will do something asymmetric that will be hard for us to prove.
Not before November.
And they're very motivated.
I wouldn't.
They are very
Not before
motivated.
I wouldn't
November.
make a lot of bets on that.
I would make a bet. They have no. I mean, I always assume that the other person is rational, and when they behave irrationally, then what can you say? But if I have them, I say, listen, Trump, we don't know what he's capable of. He will end us. He's up for election in November. If we cause trouble, we may just help him. Bernie Sanders, we're going to roll right over Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren, any Democrat, where it's going to be party time for Iran as soon as the Democrats take office. So why would we do anything until that election is over?
I bet my bottom dollar they do something before the election.
Why would they?
And when they do,
show Trump
and when they do, he'll do the
call
same thing that he did with North Korea. Oh, they're not going to fire off any missiles. Then they do fire off any
John,
missiles.
so
and then he minimizes it like he does with everything. Oh, it's not a big
John,
deal.
you be the
They're just
Ayatollah.
firing off some stuff.
You be the Ayatollah. Now you suggest to me that you want to kill some Americans. Go ahead, suggest it.
I want to kill some Americans.
Yeah, you want this is not over. I want to kill a few soldiers or something. What something?
Yeah.
And I say, Ayatollah, you saw what he did to Soleimani. He said he's going to sink our navy next, and I believe him. Now you tell me to do it anyway.
Do it anyway.
It makes no sense. No,
You know what?
you're not going to do it anyway.
You know what?
You're not going to do it anyway.
Try this scenario though.
You know what's
this
fucked up?
scenario.
I'm just gonna say one thing. You know what's
Just
fucked up
simplify.
about this? Even in this scenario, I don't get to play Ayatollah. Like this is
Hey! Mark it down. I tell you to mark it down. Right, what's your scenario?
No, here's a different scenario for you. We must seek revenge on the bastard Trump.
Yeah.
And instead of killing a general or bombing a bunch of soldiers, day of election day in America, they shut off the power grid in Orlando, Florida.
Day of election day.
Yeah.
I
can come up with 25 asymmetric scenarios.
So what do you think Trump's response to that would be?
I don't think he has a response.
I don't need.
He will sink their navy.
That's-
He will.
What if they can't prove it? What if you can't prove it?
Well,
that's where Trump. That's where Trump.
He'll
Trump
blame it
doesn't
on
care.
Democrats. He'll say the Democrats. are doing this,
right.
The blame.
Right.
Well, I suppose if they really can't prove it, but I don't. I mean, if they commit the perfect crime, then we might be at a loss, maybe. But if there's any president who's not going to give a shit whether you can prove it or not, it's
They've
Trump.
got so many yahoos that are just looking for an excuse. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
All right, we get
act like they have
soon.
some. You act like they have the same type of military. They don't do things the way that we do. They've
just
got a
saying-
bunch of angry dudes out there. You killed our guy. As soon as I get a chance, I'm gonna do something reckless.
Well, get a chance. I think the first chance would be most likely after election day. I
No,
don't think people walk into a buzzsaw
Nobody's
and
waiting
cut
till
their head
November.
open so easily.
Yeah, nobody's waiting till.
Yeah, we gotta
Yeah, we
because we gotta go as
wrap
well.
it up?
Do you have any final thoughts, or you wanna?
Yeah, I was just hoping, before they do anything like that, they fix my iPhone. Get it back to me. These guys are suspect, but they do good work.
Lou Perez, you want to share your information?
Oh yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Lou on the Subway, and check out We the Internet TV on YouTube
wait.
and Facebook.
Is there any candidate that you would vote that would make you vote for Trump?
That would make me vote.
Would you vote for Sanders over Trump? Would you vote for?
I mean, I normally vote third party. So that's like the easy.
That's a clever dodge.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any candidate? Is there any candidate who's too far left for you?
I'm black. Of course not. When you have a president of the United States that says black people have nothing to lose, they walk out of the house and get shot. He says that in public, and it's got a white supremacist working in the White House. Fuck no.
I respect that. What
If I force myself to vote for Hillary, I'll vote for anybody Democrat. Unfortunately, even Warren or Bernie, but no Trump.
Okay, now let me tell you this. He's lying. I know.
Because I can't vote.
I know that he's lying. It is. We're living in a time where you just don't want to be sad. But
No, it's true. It's true. That's recent change. It just.
I will say that I would prefer to see Trump, and I know, and I'm not. I know that I could totally live to regret this because there's so many dangers with Trump. But I think that foreign policy is the most important thing. We don't realize this, but like my father always used to tell me that. He says, "No, it's all about foreign policy." And I think that the mischief, the freedom that our enemies around the world would feel if we had a president as a virtual pacifist like a Bernie Sanders to take over would be that would be an existential threat. Like that is when you're really going to see threats. So I like Bernie Sanders actually, and I find him to be a very sincere, charming guy. But I think it would be very dangerous.
So why don't we do it like we did with Trump?
president.
Let's try him. Why can't we do that?
Because, like I said about Iran's a perfect example. There is zero. You're going to take deterrence off the table in a global sense with a President Bernie Sanders, or at least they're going to test it, and it scares the shit out of me. Trump scares the shit out of me too, but a pacifist president is really
No, I think Bernie is. Again, if it was any normal human being, they'd blow the map out. It looked like Reagan '84. If it's Bernie versus Trump, Trump's going to win 44, 45 states.
Yeah,
he's gonna absolutely destroy them. And look, I make this analogy, and it drives the Bernie people nuts online. This is Jeremy Corbyn. You had Boris Johnson, an unpopular guy, and you had Jeremy Corbyn, who was so far out. I mean, actually, Bernie's less cuckoo than Jeremy, but not by a whole lot. And what did you see? You saw the Labour Party destroyed.
Yeah.
And 60% of the vote in the UK is in about a 100-mile radius of London. That is Labour country. They should romp there. It shrank down into basically the urban center core for Labour and a few little outliers. He destroyed their party. The Democrats could take a suicide pill here against the worst candidate they could possibly nominate with the worst candidate they could face and still lose. And I think it would be a cataclysm for their party. Any Democrat who wakes up in the morning right now and starts counting their chickens or picking out curtains in the White House, they're making a huge category error.
Well, last call. Bolton will testify.
No,
I think he will.
he'll stiff arm him.
I hope he does.
If he does testify, he'll play games because he's really happy right now with what's going on with Iran.
I agree with you 1,000%. I don't think he's out to take Trump down.
Yeah, his mustache got so much bigger after Iran.
Is that it?
John,
if your war with Iran leaves you hard for more than 4 hours,
final thoughts if you want to share your information.
Oh yeah, hit me up at He Was Funny, man. It's always good talking to you, and it was a pleasure, Rick, sitting next to you.
Yeah, that was
man.
awesome.
Likewise, John.
History is going to be very kind to you. Black people around the world are rejoicing that you're doing what you're doing, man. Because this guy, and if I called him a devil, then they would say, "Oh, this guy's some type of whatever." I'm glad you called him a devil because that's what he is. And
Wait, he told Trump a devil.
he called the name of the book. The title of the book has got devil in it.
So,
And
Rick, how can people help with the Lincoln Project if they can?
Well-
and share your information as well.
you can follow me on Twitter at @TheRickWilson, modestly enough. And
The one and only.
Lincoln Project, lincolnproject.us.
Okay.
And
how do we support it?
Look, sign up, get information, share the stuff. We're putting out a lot of ads right now. We've got an ad out. Our first thing came out basically going after the evangelical base of Trump.
Oh God.
Just to give them a good hard slap across the mouth. And today we popped Cory Gardner pretty hard because he's roadblocking the trial in the Senate. And we'll be rolling out some ads in the coming days and weeks against other vulnerable Republicans to bring some pressure on them. And then we'll be moving to another phase of the operation, more focused on Donald Trump as we go forward.
We have one day a week at the Cellar when we do shows for like charities and stuff like that. I don't know. Are we
Thursday.
On Thursdays? Maybe you want to do a.
I'd love to.
You put a
the Lincoln
in touch with
Project.
Harry
Tim, you
Allen?
want to talk?
Got you.
We'll
Yeah.
talk. Yeah.
See, John, see how I am.
And I wait, and I will host it for free. Yes, I will be there for free.
All right.
I love it.
And live.
No, I saw a show. I was supposed to say this. I saw a show that John Laster hosted the other night, and it was. I hadn't been there a long time to see you. It was really good.
Thank you.
That was really.
He's
good show.
amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. The only thing I didn't like is that at some point you I guess you rushed for time and you didn't do any material at all in between the acts, and I wanted to hear more John Laster.
We were behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good night, sir. It was a pleasure to meet
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a good night.
You were listening to Live from America podcast. To contact us, please go to www.livefromamericapodcast.com. Brought to you by the Comedy Cellar and Rethink Production.